My sister-in-law tried to ruin my pregnancy announcement, but karma struck back. I still remember the way the room felt that night, filled with warmth and light. A space buzzing with laughter, with clinking glasses, with joy and anticipation. It was meant to be a celebration, a gathering to mark not just my husband's recent promotion but also our pregnancy announcement. A new chapter was beginning for us, and I was thrilled to share that with everyone close to us. Or so I thought. I didn't expect the night to spiral into the chaos it did. Nor did I imagine that the person behind it would be my own sister-in-law, Catherine, but perhaps I should have. Looking back, I can see the small signs I ignored. The subtle digs, the quiet glares. Catherine and I had never been close. Yet I had hoped that with the news of the baby, maybe things would finally change between us. But I was wrong. Catherine wasn't just distant or a little cold. She was someone who held a deep resentment for reasons I could barely understand at the time. And it was at that party, in a way no one could have anticipated, that her resentment finally came to light. When my husband, Tom, and I shared the news of my pregnancy, everyone had been overjoyed. Friends and family gathered around us, offering their congratulations, filling our hearts with the kind of love and support that made the journey ahead seem all the more beautiful. I felt invincible, wrapped in that affection, seeing a future filled with laughter and light. I suppose in the back of my mind, a part of me sensed Catherine's bitterness even then. She was Tom's only sibling, and over the years, our relationship had been mostly civil, if not close. She'd always had a strained relationship with her own family, something stemming from a complex dynamic between her and Tom. And when I entered the picture, it seemed to add another layer to that tension. Over time, I noticed her quiet comparisons. The way she would bring up my accomplishments with an undertone of disdain, as if I had somehow unfairly achieved things she could only aspire to. My career, my relationship with Tom, my seemingly perfect life, all of these became unspoken points of envy for her. I tried to ignore it, telling myself that family meant patience and understanding, that maybe I just needed to give Catherine time. I was wrong. I learned that hard truth on the night of Tom's promotion party. The evening was meticulously planned. Friends from all walks of life were invited, colleagues, old college friends, close family, and neighbors who had become friends. Tom had worked hard to reach this point in his career, and the night was as much a celebration of him as it was of our new journey as parents-to-be. I remember feeling light on my feet, almost as if the world were a dream that night. But dreams have a way of unraveling when least expected. As the evening progressed, I noticed Catherine slipping away from the crowd here and there. She was always on her phone, texting or calling someone, her expression tense and calculated. I tried not to think too much of it, chalking it up to her usual detached attitude at family events. But there was something different about her that night, an energy that felt almost dangerous. And then it happened. Near the end of the evening, a commotion started near the dining area. Someone had noticed a group of strange, uninvited people entering the house dressed provocatively, talking loudly, and acting as if they were at a nightclub instead of a family party. They seemed entirely out of place among our guests. And within moments, the energy of the party shifted. It was then that I noticed Catherine standing off to the side, a smirk on her face, her eyes gleaming with something dark and malicious. In an instant, I knew she was behind this spectacle. The group, some of them carrying drinks, others taking videos and photos, descended upon the party as if it were their personal stage. People began to murmur, shocked and confused, as these strangers started moving through the crowd, causing a scene. Some of our guests looked visibly uncomfortable, while others tried to avoid eye contact. Baffled by the unfolding chaos, I could feel my heart racing, my hands clammy as I watched the evening unravel. But Catherine hadn't stopped there. In an audacious move, she called out to me, pretending to introduce me to her new friends. It was clear that she had orchestrated this intrusion, hoping to embarrass me in front of our friends and family. She wanted me to be humiliated, to be seen as someone who couldn't handle the very event meant to celebrate our life's new chapter. And the worst part? I saw the satisfaction in her eyes as she watched me stand frozen, desperately trying to process what was happening. But something in me shifted in that moment. I realized that this was not just a petty attempt to embarrass me. This was the manifestation of years of jealousy and resentment she had harbored, finally unleashed in a public setting. I took a deep breath, steadied myself, and resolved not to let her have the satisfaction she so clearly craved. I calmly walked over to Tom, whispered that we needed to call security, and then made my way toward the group that Catherine had invited. I spoke with quiet authority, letting them know that they needed to leave. Some of them laughed it off, while others looked taken aback by my calm composure. But when security arrived moments later, escorting the group out of the house, the power in the room shifted once more. Catherine's plan was falling apart, her smirk fading as she realized that her grand scheme had backfired. It was then that one of the strangers, angered by being thrown out, let slip that Catherine had paid them to attend, encouraging them to liven up the party. As murmurs spread through the crowd, the full weight of her actions became clear to everyone present. I watched as friends, family, and colleagues looked at Catherine with shock, disappointment, and even disgust. Tom's face reflected a mix of disbelief and anger as he pieced together the reality of what his own sister had done. But Catherine's troubles were only beginning. As the night wore on, and the guests began to leave, I thought the ordeal was finally over. But just when I believed the worst had passed, police arrived at the door. One of the guests, concerned by the disruption and suspicious of Catherine's motives, had quietly reported the incident. After speaking with several people, the officers began to piece together what had happened, including the fact that Catherine had effectively orchestrated a disturbance at a private event. To our collective shock, Catherine was escorted out by the police. I watched as she left, her head held high, trying to maintain a shred of dignity as she was led to the patrol car. The aftermath of that night left me shaken, not because of the embarrassment or the drama, but because of the harsh reality that had been revealed. Catherine wasn't simply a person with a little sibling rivalry, she was someone willing to go to extreme lengths to hurt others, driven by a bitterness that ran far deeper than I'd understood. Days turned into weeks, and the fallout continued. Catherine's husband, Mark, couldn't reconcile himself with what she'd done. The scandal had not only embarrassed our family but had also tarnished his reputation in the community. He filed for divorce, unwilling to remain married to someone who would stoop so low. It was an ending I hadn't anticipated. A chapter closed on a relationship that had once seemed unbreakable. But perhaps it was inevitable, a consequence of the choices Catherine had made. In the months that followed, I found myself reflecting on the events of that night often. I thought about Catherine, about the paths we take and the choices we make, and how bitterness, left unchecked, can consume a person completely. I had once hoped that our pregnancy announcement would bring us closer, that perhaps a new addition to the family could heal old wounds. But instead, it had unmasked a darkness that had been lurking beneath the surface, revealing a truth none of us could ignore. I never expected Catherine's plan to backfire the way it did, or for the consequences to be as severe as they were. But perhaps that's the nature of deceit once it's exposed. It leaves nothing but ruin in its wake. And as for me, I walked away from that night with a new understanding of the people around me. A clarity that had been hidden behind years of politeness and tolerance. In the end, Catherine's scheme had failed, and she had paid the price. But the lessons I learned that night, the resilience I found within myself, the strength to face humiliation without faltering, and the wisdom to see people for who they truly are, those are things that I carry with me still. Now, as I prepare to welcome my child into the world, I am filled with a renewed sense of purpose. I am determined to build a life defined not by bitterness or resentment but by love, patience, and integrity. The shadows of that night will always remain, but they serve as a reminder of the strength it takes to stand against cruelty, and the resilience it takes to hold on to grace in the face of betrayal.